Hello, my name is Emily, and today I'm going to talk to you a little bit about Huntington's disease. So, just a general summary on why it happens. So, it's a genetic brain disorder, and it happens by a mutation in the HTT gene. And that gene is responsible for providing the role for the nerves in the cell, so the neurons, specifically in the brain. So the mutation is known as a CAG trinucleotide repeat. So normally our CAG repeats in our body, like in a normal person, 10 to 35 times. But someone with Huntington's disease, that segment repeats way more times than that, so 36 to 120 more times. And this picture kind of shows where that is in the specific gene. And Huntington's is also an inherited genetic disorder. So it's an autosomal dominant disorder. So that means if someone has this mutation in the gene, they have a 50% chance of passing it on to their offspring. And so next I'm going to talk about the phenotypes of Huntington disease. So basically what it looks like with someone that has this. So they have rigid muscle weakness, it affects their gait, it changes any kind of motor skills, tremors, involuntary movements, and seizures. And this picture kind of shows what it affects in the neurons, because that's what it usually affects. And you can kind of see in this picture what it does to the neurons.
Hey, I'm Allie. Today I'm going to talk to you about the history of a case study of Huntington's disease. A 28-year-old female diagnosed with Huntington's disease was originally presented with abnormal movements of her hands and face, and abnormal behaviors. Some of her family members had these same symptoms, however they were never diagnosed with anything. After running many tests, nothing came back abnormal. Even a blood smear did not show any abnormal cells. What diagnosed her with Huntington's disease was her CT. Her CT scan came back showing that there was a flattening of the wall of the frontal horn, indicating atrophy of the nucleus. This prevented her from doing certain things. For example, she was unable to fix her gaze at one point for more than 30 seconds, and unable to keep her tongue out for more than 30 seconds. She was given haloperidol, which has been the most effective, but there was no cure. Now I'm going to talk about the background of the disease. It affects about 5 to 10 people per 100,000, meaning there's less than 200,000 cases per year. It's caused by a repeated expansion of the HTT gene on the chromosome 4. Normally it's repeated about 16 to 20 times, however, with Huntington's disease it's repeated a lot more than that.
Hi guys, it's Lauren. Our disease is Huntington's disease, and we're going to be talking about the way to diagnose it. And so the way to diagnose it is you'll be examined by a neurologist, and they'll ask you a bunch of questions based on your motor symptoms, your sensory symptoms, and your psychiatric symptoms. And a lot of the symptoms of the disease is you have like uncontrolled movement of your arms, legs, or any part of your body. And there's also a big decline in like thinking or reasoning skills, including memory, concentration, judgment, or ability to plan and organize things. And we're also going to be talking about the treatment or cure options for Huntington's disease. And there's actually not a cure. There's only like certain treatments that can help with the main symptoms of the disease, such as the involuntary movements and the severe irritability that comes along with it, and also the obsessive compulsive thoughts and actions that come along with the disease as well.
Hey everyone, so we are here to talk about the inheritance patterns of Huntington's disease. Huntington disease is inherited as an autosomal dominant trait, which means that all you need for that is one affected father or mother, as you can see here in our chart here, and that produces a 50% chance of each offspring of getting this mutation on the HTT gene, which means that they have a sequence of CAG nucleotides that are repeating sequences, and those people with Huntington's disease have far too many of those repeating sequences. A normal person would have about 10 to 35 repeating sequences, where someone with Huntington's disease may have 36 or more, and someone with early onset, so like childhood onset of this disease, might have 60 or more repeating sequences. But we also want to talk a little bit about testing available. So there are testing for parents, especially since the prevalence of someone with Huntington's disease passing on that trait is at 50% per offspring. It is something that people want to take into consideration. So there is DNA blood testing, and then there's also testing for prenatal, like fetus testing, using like amniocentesis that many parents might use to test to see if their child has Huntington disease. Since oftentimes, people won't know that they have it until they're in their 30s, 40s, or 50s, and so this is something that on a psychological level, people want to know for themselves and for their future offspring. And then moving forward, we are talking about the evolution of this HTT gene, which is also called IT15 gene, as you can see in our title, which stands for Interesting Transcript 15. The HTT gene is related to Huntington, which is a protein that the disease gets its name from, and it is something that we can see evolutionarily passed down from our past ancestors. So if you look here on our phylogenetic tree that we created through the Mega software, you can see just how closely we're related, of course, to some of these other animals, such as chimps and Galleta, and even the Arctic ground squirrel and bottlenose dolphins. But you can see from a very specific gene, this gene that codes for Huntington's disease mutation, you can see on a very specific level how we are attached to these people. So humans and chimps have a common ancestor, and then further back and even closer, another common ancestor with the Galleta monkey, all the way back to the very far left, where you can see all of these 7 species having a common ancestor that passed along this specific gene on chromosome 4 that turned into a mutation for Huntington disease.